My boss ignored my warnings about the coffee shop plumbing, insisting, "You're not a plumber, just do as instructed." I connected the machine anyway. 50 guests drank radiator water coffee, and what happened next destroyed his entire business dream. Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this situation. I'm actually a licensed master plumber with 15 years of experience in commercial installations, but I'd taken this temporary job at Marcus's new coffee shop because I was between major projects and needed something to fill a few weeks. Marcus had this grandiose vision of opening the most exclusive coffee experience in our upscale downtown district, complete with a $15,000 Italian espresso machine and plans for a grand opening party that would attract all the local business elite. From day one, Marcus made it clear he saw me as just another minimum wage employee. He'd hired me through a temp agency and never bothered to look at my actual qualifications listed on my resume. To him, I was just some guy who could lift heavy things and follow basic instructions. The irony wasn't lost on me that he was paying me $12 an hour to do work I normally charge $75 an hour for. But I'd committed to helping him get the place ready, so I figured I'd see it through. The problem started immediately when I walked into his space. Marcus had clearly cut every corner possible on the build-out. The layout was a disaster from a functional standpoint. No proper washing stations behind the counter, electrical outlets in all the wrong places, and most critically, the plumbing was a complete mess. He'd hired the cheapest contractor he could find, and it showed. The guy had basically just roughed in some pipes without any real understanding of what a commercial coffee operation actually needed. When the espresso machine arrived, Marcus was practically bouncing with excitement. This thing was his pride and joy, a massive gleaming beast of Italian engineering that he'd clearly spent more money on than the rest of the build-out combined. He kept talking about how impressed his investors would be, how this machine would set him apart from all the chain coffee shops, how this was going to be his ticket to expanding into a whole network of premium locations. "I need this baby up and running by tomorrow," he told me, gesturing dramatically at the machine. "The grand opening is in 3 days, and I've got 50 of the most important people in this city coming to try our coffee. This is make or break time." I started examining the space where he wanted the machine installed and immediately spotted the problem. The pipe he was pointing to as the water source was clearly part of the building's radiator system. I could tell just by looking at it, wrong type of pipe, wrong location, wrong connections. Any experienced plumber would have spotted it instantly. "Marcus," I said carefully, "I think there might be an issue with this water line. This looks like it's connected to the heating system, not the potable water supply." His face immediately darkened. "Are you questioning my planning? I've spent months designing this layout. I know exactly where every pipe goes." "I understand, but I really think we should have a licensed plumber take a look before we connect this machine. If this is radiator water, it could damage the equipment and—" "Stop right there," Marcus cut me off, his voice getting louder. "You're not a plumber, just do as instructed. I didn't hire you to think. I hired you to install equipment where I tell you to install it." I took a deep breath, trying to stay professional. "Actually, Marcus, I am a licensed plumber. If you look at my qualifications, I don't care what some temp agency form says," he snapped. "You think I'm going to trust some hourly worker over my own planning? This is a $200,000 build-out we're talking about. I know what I'm doing." The dismissive tone in his voice was something I'd heard before from clients who thought they knew better than the experts they'd hired. Usually, I'd just walk away from a situation like this. But something about Marcus's arrogant attitude made me curious to see how this would play out. Plus, I'd technically done what I was supposed to do. I'd warned him about the problem. If he wanted to ignore professional advice, that was his choice. "All right," I said simply. "You're the boss." I spent the rest of that day connecting the espresso machine exactly as Marcus had specified. The work itself was straightforward, even if I knew it was wrong. I made sure to document everything with photos, partly out of professional habit, and partly because I had a feeling I might need evidence of what I'd been told to do. The next morning, Marcus arrived bright and early, practically vibrating with excitement. He'd invited about a dozen of his friends and potential investors for a pre-opening tasting, wanting to make sure everything was perfect before the big grand opening party. "Fire her up," he announced dramatically, gesturing toward the espresso machine like he was christening a ship. I filled the machine's reservoir and started the initial brewing process. Marcus hovered nearby, already talking about expansion plans and franchise opportunities to his captive audience. These were clearly people with money. I recognized a few local business owners, a city council member, and what looked like some serious investors based on their expensive suits, and the way Marcus was practically genuflecting in their presence. For the next hour, I dutifully made cup after cup of coffee. Marcus was in his element, playing the role of sophisticated coffee entrepreneur, explaining the nuances of different roasts and brewing techniques. His guests seemed appropriately impressed, nodding along and making appreciative noises about the rich flavor and smooth texture. "This is exactly the kind of premium experience our city has been missing," Marcus declared, handing out business cards and talking about investment opportunities. "We're going to revolutionize the local coffee scene." I made approximately 50 cups that morning: espressos, cappuccinos, lattes, americanos. Marcus wanted everyone to try multiple variations, and several people brought their spouses or business partners by to sample the offerings. Word was already spreading through their social network about this exciting new coffee venture opening up downtown. It wasn't until I started cleaning the machine afterward that I noticed the problem. The water running out of the system was dark brown, not the clear water you'd expect from flushing a coffee machine. At first I thought maybe it was just residual coffee, but as I continued running the cleaning cycle, the water kept coming out the same murky brown color. I tested the water supply directly from the pipe, and sure enough, dark brown water full of sediment and rust. The radiator system hadn't been properly maintained, and years of corrosion and mineral buildup had created a toxic soup that Marcus's guests had been drinking all morning. "Marcus," I called over to him, "you might want to take a look at this." He was still entertaining his potential investors, but he wandered over with an annoyed expression. "What now? We're in the middle of important conversations." I showed him the water coming out of the cleaning cycle. His face went white. What is that?" "That's radiator water," I said calmly. "Exactly what I tried to warn you about yesterday. This machine has been brewing coffee with water from the heating system, not the potable water supply." The color drained completely from Marcus's face as the implications hit him. 50 people, including some of the most influential business leaders in the city, had just consumed multiple cups of coffee made with contaminated radiator water, water that likely contained rust, corrosion inhibitors, antifreeze compounds, and who knows what other chemicals used in building heating systems. But nobody said anything about the taste," he stammered. "Coffee's brown," I pointed out, "and it has a strong enough flavor to mask a lot of other tastes, especially when you're adding milk and sugar." I could see Marcus starting to panic as he realized the full scope of what had just happened. These weren't just random customers who might leave a bad Yelp review. These were people whose opinions could make or break a business in our tight-knit business community. The city council member alone could probably shut him down with a single phone call to the health department. "What do we do?" he asked, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. I shrugged. "We call a real plumber to fix the connection to the actual water supply, and probably a lawyer to figure out your liability exposure for serving contaminated beverages to 50 people. The next few hours were a masterclass in watching someone's business dreams disintegrate in real time. Marcus had to call each of his morning guests to explain what had happened and recommend they seek medical attention if they experienced any adverse effects. Most of them were understandably horrified and furious. Several threatened immediate legal action. The potential investors pulled out on the spot. By the time another licensed plumber arrived, a colleague of mine, who Marcus had to pay emergency rates to come out immediately, word was already spreading through the local business community. In a city this size, news travels fast, especially when it involves 50 prominent people getting poisoned at what was supposed to be an exclusive tasting event. The plumber confirmed what I already knew. The connection was indeed to the radiator system, not the potable water supply. Fixing it properly required tearing out a significant portion of the build-out and installing completely new water lines, which would cost nearly $8,000 and push back the opening by at least 2 weeks. But by then, it didn't matter. The grand opening party had to be canceled. The local health department launched an investigation. 3 of the guests ended up in the emergency room with stomach issues, leading to a whole new level of legal complications. Marcus's liability insurance didn't cover serving contaminated food and beverages, so he was facing potential personal bankruptcy from the lawsuits. The beautiful $15,000 espresso machine had to be completely disassembled and professionally cleaned to remove all the contaminated water and sediment, adding another $2,000 to his costs. Even after cleaning, most customers would never trust drinking anything that had been contaminated with radiator water. Within 2 weeks, Marcus was forced to abandon the entire venture. The combination of legal liabilities, cleanup costs, build-out delays, and complete loss of investor confidence made it impossible to continue. The space sat empty for months afterward, with a "for lease" sign in the window, serving as a monument to what happens when you ignore professional expertise. The final irony came when Marcus tried to blame me for the disaster, claiming I should have refused to follow his instructions. That's when I pulled out the photos I'd taken and my detailed documentation of our conversation, where he'd explicitly overruled my professional recommendation and ordered me to proceed despite my warnings. His lawyer took one look at the evidence and advised him that pursuing any action against me would likely result in me filing a countersuit for defamation and professional interference. The case would also create a public record of him knowingly ignoring expert advice, which would make his position in the other lawsuits even worse. As for me, I went back to my regular plumbing business with a story that became legendary among my professional network. Word spread quickly through the contractor community about the coffee shop owner who thought he knew better than a master plumber and ended up poisoning 50 of the city's business elite. It actually brought me several new commercial clients who specifically wanted to work with someone who would give them honest professional advice, even when they didn't want to hear it. Marcus disappeared from the local business scene entirely after settling the lawsuits. I heard he moved to another state and got a job working for someone else, hopefully in a position where he has to follow expert advice rather than giving it. His dreams of building a coffee empire died in that brown, contaminated water flowing out of his precious Italian espresso machine. The lesson, as I always tell my clients now, is simple. When you hire an expert, listen to their expertise, because sometimes the difference between success and failure is as basic as knowing which pipe carries drinking water and which one carries the toxic sludge that keeps your building warm.